Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and today is my Snoop Dogg retrospective. But I want to be careful how I go about this one because Snoop Dogg has ties to the Dog Pound and NWA, and those are two hip-hop groups I'm not comfortable talking about fully as a white person. At least in certain contexts. But we're going to talk about Snoop Dogg in well, it's a retrospective, so a little bit of a historical context, but this isn't a biography video. I'm not going to recap his entire life, because I don't fucking know, and I don't really care. I like his music. But it's going to be my discovery of Snoop Dogg, the persona, his music, and what why it appeals to me and what it means to me. So, you already know that I'm a professional writer, or have been in the past, and I am, a published author. I was a journalist. I started writing at an early age. Even before that, I was very much into theater and film and storytelling. And so, for me, I'm also drawn to history, and I'm also drawn to, because I'm a transgender woman growing up in the Midwest in a fairly conservative small town area, surrounded by people I would classify as, at the time, bigots, but probably misinformed. Today they may be more open-minded, but back then they weren't. So my experiences were outside the norm. And so I had a lot of non-white friends. I had friends who were Muslim. I had friends who were Hispanic. I had friends who were Native American. I had friends who were black. I had some friends who were black who were African American. I had some friends who were black who were from Africa, and they identified as whatever nation they were from, whether it was Sudan, or one of them was from Nigeria, one of them was from Congo, wherever. So I had a lot of. I grew up in that. Now, I lived in small towns most of my life, but I moved around the bigger towns, and we did live in a medium-sized city in Kansas for a period, and then I moved to Nevada, and there I was the only white kid in my school. Everybody else was other nationalities, ethnicities, backgrounds, etc. So I've always had an appreciation for other cultures and other backgrounds, and where people struggles and where people come from and stuff like that, because I've never really fit into the the social norm, the cisgender heterosexual white Christian male. That wasn't me, and so I didn't fit in with that, so I associated with other people who were outside of that, just fine, regular, good, ordinary people. And so I was exposed to rap music, hip-hop music, jazz music, Latino music, freestyle music, reggae, and other non-traditional music. I shouldn't say non-traditional, because they're traditional in those cultures. I guess ethnic music. Other, outside of just, the standard top 40 pop, rock and roll, what was on the radio and MTV at the time. And one of the very first tapes I ever bought, when I was very little, like first grade, I believe, maybe second grade, no, probably first or second grade, or between first and second grade, somewhere in that ballpark, 6 or 7 years old. The very first audio cassette I ever got. All right, you're gonna mock me for this. Yes, I know. To the Extreme by Vanilla Ice. It's hip hop, but that's white hip hop. That's white rap. I know, but this was my first exposure to rap music. And then my second tape was a cassette single that had Boom Shake the Room by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince on one side, and I believe it was a remix of Code Red or one of his other songs from that album on the B-side. But it was, Boom Shake the Room by Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. And then my third audio cassette that I got was Crisscross Totally Crossed Out, the entire album. And I was steering into hip-hop really early on in my life, very young. My parents started buying me those, like, cheap compilation tapes that you found at, like, the, well, back then it would have been Kmart. Like the On the Rap tip, Cool Rap, stuff like that. These low-budget, basically rap samplers. They started buying me stuff like that. Because that's what I was into, and my parents were, they did their best to placate my interests. But MTV was not playing a lot of rap music videos at this time. It was mostly a lot of, what they call butt rock, hair metal, and a whole hell of a lot of Madonna. Because hip-hop, the MTV hadn't started their, Yo MTV Raps. That hadn't happened yet. This is before then. So I didn't really have a lot of exposure to hip-hop other than I had friends who, like I said, were non-white, who were introducing me to it, and then also seeing Will Smith on the TV, Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I was slowly developing an more than a passing interest in hip-hop music. I was really fascinated by the variety of sounds that rap music produced, because it was nothing like anything I had heard before. It was very different, very unique. It definitely wasn't Madonna or New Kids on the Block, I'll tell you that right now. One thing I liked about these rap songs, whether it was, Parents Just Don't Understand, or Mama Said Knock You Out, or I Missed the Bus, etc., etc., what I liked about them versus, like, your pop songs, your top 40 songs, and your butt rock, was they told a story. It was very poetic, and they always told a story. And so I was fascinated by that element as well, because, like, the lyrics made sense. It wasn't just nonsense. She's my cherry pie, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What the fuck is that? It's just nonsense. It's just a chant. There's no lyrics. They don't make coherent sense. There's no story, So a lot of it was, I was fascinated by that. So when my older sister, in what would have been 1993, brought home the audio cassette of Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style, popped it into our stereo when Mom and Dad were not home, because that would not fly had they been home, I was instantly enamored. I was like, holy shit, this is fucking this is what I've been looking for. This is what I want. The music, and I've talked about this before, G-Funk just hit my soul. I was like, yes, this is what music is supposed to sound like. And I had a friend in school, and I want to say his name was Hector. He was Hispanic. I want to say Hector, but it might have been Victor. I can't remember. This was fucking 1993, y'all. I was like 11 years old, maybe, at the time. This was a long time ago. I moved around a lot. I've met a lot of people, but anyways, he was Hispanic, and he showed me a cassette that he had by Dr. Dre called The Chronic, and I recognized the name that was on a good chunk, at least a third or more of the tracks on the cassette. Snoop Doggy Dogg. And I was like, hey, I've got his record at home. We said record as shorthand for tape, CD, whatever. It was just the word we used back then. And so I was excited. I was like, hey, this guy's pretty cool. He's on Dr. Dre, and he's got his own CD. Well, like I said, tape at the time. And I was like, yeah, cool. So my sister made a copy of Doggy Style for me to listen to whenever I wanted. Because she made the mistake of accidentally leaving her copy in my dad's cassette player, and when he came home and heard the words coming out of that guy's mouth, well, me and my sister both got a big ass whooping for that. Because he was dropping some F-bombs and N-words and everything else. Not something you want your 11-year-old kid to listen to. Especially if you're, you know, evangelical Christian conservative. So, fortunately, I had the copy. So I was still able to listen to it, you know, late at night in my headphones when my parents were asleep. And then I started buying other, at first tapes at this time, because I didn't get my first CD player until 97, so this is a few years out, so I'm still getting tapes. And I was getting, you know, I got, I can't remember the name of the album, but it was the album by LL Cool J that had the track "Mama Said Knock You Out" on it, because by this point, Yo MTV Raps was on the air, and so I was starting to see more MTV music videos, and that was a video that was heavy in the rotation. And then you started seeing Parents Just Don't Understand, Criss Cross, Jump Around, Snoop Dogg, you know, Gin and Juice, Dr. Dre's Ain't Nothing But a G Thing. And it was growing from there. Digital Underground, you know, the Humpty Dance, Cypress Hill, Insane in the Brain, or Insane in the Membrane, or whatever it was called. And so my collection of hip-hop cassettes was growing, as was my interest in it. And I was branching out and trying everything. And for a while, I was just like, yeah, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. But I kept going back to Snoop. And I kept going back to G-Funk. I didn't have a word for it yet, because it was just rap music. I didn't know the differences in the different styles of rap music. Just to me, it was all rap music. And then I got, in 1997, I got my first CD player. And one of the first CDs I bought with my own money, unbeknownst to my parents, because they would have killed me had they known I bought it, was The Dogfather. This was the first record Snoop Dogg released where he dropped the Doggy middle name and he was just Snoop Dogg instead of Snoop Doggy Dogg. It was also the last record he released under Death Row Records. Now you gotta remember, at this time I'm a teenager. I'm just watching MTV for Daria and the music videos and TRL. I'm not really watching it for the, you know, the news. So I don't know what's going on with the behind the scenes, you know, Tupac, Biggie, Death Row, Bad Boy, all that bullshit. I didn't know about any of that at this point in my life. I just knew that the more Snoop Dogg I was introduced to, the more I liked. I ended up buying the CD Murder Was the Case, which was the soundtrack to a movie Snoop Dogg was in, I believe, which featured a remix of his hit Murder Was the Case, which was featured on Doggy Style, as well as Warren G's Regulate G-Funk Era. Eventually I got the Dog Pound's Dog Food, and slowly I started discovering more and more that the G-Funk was what I was into, and I now I had a name for it because Warren G referred to it as the G-Funk Era, and he describes what G-Funk was, or at least in poetic terms, and I understood it. And so I kept, for a period, I kept buying Snoop Dogg CDs. I bought The Game Is To Be Sold, Not To Be Told, No Limit Top Dog, and then I bought The Last Meal. Around this time, at this point in time, I was an adult. I was living on my own, had a job, had an apartment, had a car, a girlfriend, etc. You know, I was living on my own. I was no longer under my parents' umbrella, so I could listen to whatever the fuck I wanted, whenever the fuck I wanted. And so I was buying everything. I bought the East Siders. I bought the soundtrack and the VHS tape to the movie The Wash. Not a good movie. Not a terrible soundtrack. Not a great soundtrack, but it was just more West Coast G-Funk. And then, of course, I got Dr. Dre's Chronic 2001. And then, you know, I sort of expanded beyond that at that time. But I was not liking what I was hearing coming from Snoop Dogg at this point. I still like The Game Is To Be Sold, Not To Be Told, No Limit, Top Dog, and I still really, really liked The Last Meal. But his stuff he was doing on The Wash and the East Siders and some of this other stuff he was doing, and then him joining the reformatted NWA, it felt like he had crossed over into the mainstream, just like Ice Cube had done at this point. And he wasn't rapping about real stuff anymore, you know? You listen to Gin and Juice or Lottie Dottie or, you know, even Murder Was the Case or Ain't No Fun or whatever. You listen to any of the songs on The Dogfather or, you know, Dog's Gonna Get Ya or, you know, Woof Woof on whichever, I think it was The Game Is To Be Sold. Anyways, he tells a story. But then post Last Meal, he's just rapping about bitches and hoes and blunts and cars like every other fucking rapper. And I'm like, I get it, dude. You're rich now. I get it, but, like, can you talk about... Well, no, he's rich now. He can't talk about being a regular dude walking down the street to the Quick Mart to buy a 40 and a frozen burrito because he's not fucking doing that anymore. Now he has to rap about, you know, country clubs and, you know, blunts and, you know, celebrity Hollywood parties because that's the life he's living now. And I couldn't relate. Just like I never could relate to Puff Daddy, who only ever rapped about how fucking rich he was. God damn, dude, shut the fuck up, I don't care. And so I continue to have an appreciation for Snoop Dogg. Calvin Broadus is his legal name. The entertainer, the performer, the man, the businessman. But then he did something that lost me. Now, as a musician, I'll always fully respect his early works, especially his Death Row and No Limit work. But when he removed the entire... After he acquired the legal rights to Death Row Records and the Death Row Records name and catalog and trademarks and everything, he removed the entire Death Row catalog from all streaming services and tried to sell it exclusively on his website as a fucking NFT. And that's when I realized he was no longer a regular dude, gangsta, man of the people. He was a fucking capitalist. And I was like, alright, dude, you made your fucking money, but stop trying to squeeze me. Put your shit back on Spotify so I can listen to it without going to the high seas. Because I'm not paying for a fucking NFT of Doggy Style, goddammit. That ain't never gonna fucking happen. And yeah, enough other people did the same thing I did. Boycotted his shit and his dumbass dick move. And eventually he did restore the Death Row catalog to Spotify and other streaming services, so good move there, I guess. But, you know, is he a legend in the field? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I'll never disrespect Snoop Dogg because I'm not fucking stupid. I like breathing. You know? Yeah. I guess, just like I lost interest in all modern music around 2004-ish, that was around the time I just lost interest in what Snoop Dogg was doing. I have peeked into his catalogs since then to dabble and hear what he's up to. I haven't heard anything since the last meal with his name on it outside of One Shot, One Kill on Compton that I enjoyed. And Compton is a muddy CD. I don't really want to get into it too much. At least not today. That's another video for another day. Now, my sister, who did not have the appreciation for arts and culture and history and everything that I did, the only reason she bought Doggy Style was because it had an X-rated cartoon for the album cover, a parental advisory, and he said fuck in the N-word a lot, and she just thought that was funny because she was 12 years old, you know? I at least appreciated it for the hip-hop music because I was into that, and the storytelling because those songs tell that album start to finish tells a cohesive story. Basically, it's a day in the life of Snoop Dogg, and it's a pretty interesting story because it's like, yeah, I can't relate to this, but like, yeah, I can at least appreciate what you're going through and respect what you've been through to get where you are. Now, once you become the kingpin of hip-hop, and all you want to rap about is how goddamn rich you are, alright, I don't care anymore because I helped make you rich, motherfucker. Do you know how much money I don't make that much money, and I've given him a lot of fucking money. I've given Snoop Dogg more money than I've given Nintendo. Well, directly, anyways. That's not to say I've spent more money on Nintendo product. I have. It's just I've bought most of my Nintendo product used, which that money didn't go to Nintendo. But you get what I'm trying to say. Anyways, yeah. 90s Death Row era, No Limit era Snoop Dogg, thumbs up. Post Last Meal Snoop Dogg, thumbs down.